Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. I think we should just dive straight into it. We're going to do the DNF tag today because I feel like doing a tag. I'm actually just in the mood for doing tags, so there's at least two coming up, including this one in your future. Um, if I can find them, I will link the original source for this tag down below. I actually was working on a different tag and I have like a book where I keep notes and things, and I found the DNF tag and I was like, I'm fairly certain I haven't actually filmed this. I just checked. I haven't filmed this. um so yeah, with all that hope, I mean, for me, very little said. Let's just jump into it. There are 8 questions. As usual, I'm not going to tag anybody. So if you're seeing this and you go, oh, that looks like a fun one to do, consider yourself tagged. But yeah, the first tag is, do you DNF? Yes, I DNF. There is no shame in DNFing. I think it's a very healthy thing to do. I feel like the first thing you should actually do in this tag is explain what a DNF is. For most of us in the booktube community and doing book reviews, we're going to have an idea, we're going to know. But there are still people out there who maybe don't know what a DNF is. So a DNF is did not finish, or stands for did not finish. And it is when you choose, you make an active, conscious decision not to finish a book, to set it aside and say, that's it. I attempted to read you. It's not happening. I am not finishing this book for whatever reason. So yes, in answer to the first question, yes, I do DNF. I think it's a very healthy thing to do. You should never push yourself to finish a book that you are not enjoying. There are way too many books. There is far too little time in the world to read everything. And quite frankly, the world is crap enough as it is without, without adding misery to a hobby that is supposed to be enjoyable. So if what you're reading is not bringing you joy and you are not engaging, you are not enjoying it, you're not, it's just not doing it for you, then no. Set it aside and move on to something that will bring you fulfillment. That's my TED Talk. The second tag. So I should preface all of this with, right now, October has been kicking my butt. This is now the first weekend in November. October kicked my butt, like properly kicked my butt. And now my default state is just tired, and English, which in theory is the only language I speak, is really, really difficult. So just bear with me, okay? We'll get through this. But yes, the second prompt is, if you DNF, does the book count towards books read? I do not count it towards books I've read, but I will count it, what I read, towards the pages I read. So at the end of the year, I will track my reading in 3 separate stats in terms of quantity read. So I will have a look at how many pages read or hours listened to. DNFs will count towards those. I will then track and count how many books I have finished. And then what I will also do is separately I will go, here are the amount of books that I DNF'd. Obviously it's November, so we still have 2 months of 2025 to go, so I don't know what that number will look like for 2025. But I can say that in 2024 I DNF'd 11 books. I don't know what their page count ultimately contributed towards, but I want to say they probably contributed towards, I'm going to estimate sort of like 500 to 800 pages-ish. If I DNF a book, it's either going to be, it's generally no further along than the 50%, because once you get that point, if you're still not engaged with this book, it's not going to happen. There have been occasions where I've DNF'd a book at, I think there was one I DNF'd, I was like 85% in, I had 50 pages left, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I am miserable right now. I cannot do this. And 50 pages it was getting to the end of it was just not worth those last 50 pages. So, but 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna DNF a book within that first like half of it. The third prompt, is there a difference between DNFing and just putting it down for now? So yes, I think there is a big difference here, and that is the intention. So for me, this is what I personally classify as a hard DNF or a soft DNF. So a hard DNF is, I am really not enjoying my reading experience. I am absolutely hating it. I am consciously and very actively choosing not to finish this book, to put it aside, and to never come back to it ever again. I never want to see this book in my life again. A soft DNF, or just putting it down, is, this book is not working for me right now, but I'm confident it will work for me at a different point in time. There's a lot of books you have got to be in the right mind frame, you've got to be in the right mood for them. And some books, you know, if you start them in the wrong mind frame, you're not going to enjoy them. But you know that with the right setting, with the right drink in your hand, with the right frame of mind, you are actually going to have a great time with this book. It's just not right now. So that's, for me, sometimes I will put a book down with the intent to come back to it later on. I think that answers that. Yeah. The fourth prompt is, I need to figure out, because obviously I put all this down quite a while ago. So whoever came up with this tag, they were out for blood at one point. Like they really wanted to rile someone up at some point. Because the fourth prompt is a popular book that you've DNF'd. So I've chosen two for two different examples. So one hard DNF, one soft DNF. My soft DNF is I decided not to finish the book. I decided to put it down at the time, but I think at a different point in time I will come back to this book. So I suspect I will get on with it when I go in with the right headspace and with the right expectations. Because if you go into a book with the wrong expectations, sometimes it can work in your favor, but sometimes it can really not work in the favor, because you're like, this is not the book I thought I was reading. And that's what happened with Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I like to go into books blind as I can to avoid this, but some books, especially the really popular ones, you can't help but, even if you don't fully figure out sort of like what the plot is going to be about, you can't help but make impressions on them, make an impression of what you think it's going to be. They can't help but make an impression on you, I think. You guys get it, right? For me, with Ninth House, I went into it thinking it was going to be a dark historical, borderline gothic. I was not prepared for dark contemporary urban, dark academia. My brain just refused to accept that that's what, like, and so yeah, I really struggled because my brain had already decided going into this book that it was a historical, and then suddenly it wasn't. I really, really struggled. So I think I got maybe 2 or 3 chapters into it and was like, I can't do this right now. I really, really wasn't in the mood for urban paranormal anyway. And I wouldn't necessarily say it was paranormal, but it was definitely dark urban fantasy. And yeah, my brain just said, we couldn't do this. We just couldn't do this. So I popped it down, I put it back to the library. At some point, be it the near or far future, I don't know, I will take it out again, because I think it does, I am genuinely fascinated, and I do think it's going to be a really good book to read. But I couldn't do it at the time. Just not where I was, not the brain space I was in at the time. My hard DNF, and this is a very popular book, especially in some circles, but that is Red, White and Royal Blue by Katie McQuiston? I can't remember the author. It's McQuiston, but I can't remember the start of the author's name. I got 2 or 3 chapters into this one again, and I hated every moment of it. I'm really sorry. I mostly I just hated the characters. It wasn't so much that I felt like it was a bad book, I just really, really didn't enjoy the characters. And yeah, I'm sure there are gonna be people going, oh, but Amy, if you just persevere, you know, they mature and they grow up and you're gonna come to love them. And it's like, that might be the case, but I don't want to. I don't care. No. This was another one. Thankfully, it was a library pick. It was also a library book, so I just put it straight back to the library. Um, yeah, I was almost a visceral, I really don't like these characters. So yeah, those are my slight. I think Ninth House is a little less controversial, but Red, White, and Royal Blue is probably like the most controversial opinion I'm going to have in this video today. So it's just out there in the open. I hated the characters. I'm sorry. I will go back and reattempt this author. I'm just never going to reattempt that book. I'll never say never, but I'm fairly certain I won't. That said, leading on, the next one is, the 5th prompt is, what book do you wish you had DNF'd? And this one was so easy, and that was Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. Oh man. I read Ariadne the start of 2023, and I was, I've been a DNFer for a good few years now. But up until Ariadne, I'd always said that if it was a book club book, I would persevere. So that even if I really, even by the end, I didn't like it, I would have plenty to talk about. And, you know, I would have read the entire book, so I would have enough information to fully base my opinion on. Ariadne taught me that even for a book club, persevering with a book that you are really, really not enjoying, and persevering with a book that makes you angry, is not a good idea. This put me into the mother of all reading slumps. I'm talking like 2023, both in terms of quantity and quality, was one of the worst reading years I'd had in a very long time, and I fully blame it on Ariadne. I had a reading slump that lasted about 4 months because of finishing this book. Because I finished it and I didn't want to read anything. Because what if they all disappoint me and let me down and anger me in the way that Ariadne did? And I'm going to pause there and I'm going to stop. And other than telling you that it's marketed as a feminist retelling of the story of the Minotaur and I can't remember the rest of the people's names. It's not. It's a female POV retelling, but it's not a feminist retelling. There is a difference. Ariadne has absolutely no agency in her own life whatsoever. One of my biggest annoyances about this book. But I'm going to stop there, and that's all I'm going to say about it. If you want to know more about this book, I highly encourage you to go look it up yourself, because I am in very good danger of making the rest of this video a rant review, and I don't do rant reviews on this channel, so that's it. I pray that I never have to mention this book again in the rest of my booktube career. So, now moving on. Just moving past this, the 6th prompt is, do you ever reattempt to read a DNF? Is it ever successful? Yes, because I soft DNF, I will reattempt, and I will go back. Very, very rarely would I ever reattempt a hard DNF, so a book that I've gone like, absolutely no, we're done on that. I can only think of it happening once in like my more recent years, and that is, I attempted to read Persuasion by Jane Austen when I was in my late teens. Didn't get on with it. I thought it was boring. And so I stopped halfway through, and I don't even think I made it halfway through. And then a few years ago, when the terrible, terrible Netflix adaptation came out, after chatting with a friend who this was Persuasion is her favorite Jane Austen, I was convinced, I was influenced enough that I gave it another shot, and I absolutely loved it. If I were to do a tier ranking of Jane Austen's books, because I've now read all 6 of her main novels and a couple, I think I've read Lady Susan and Sanditon, so I've got fairly good grounding in her work at this point. But yeah, if I were to do a tier ranking, Persuasion would be very high up that list. Very high up that list. I absolutely adored it. I think I definitely, of all of her protagonists, oh gosh, what's her name? Anne? Anne Elliot? Am I thinking of the right one? It's been a couple of years now, guys. I'm sorry. You know what? You know what I'm like with character names. I can remember them, but not their name. Yeah, I think I really related to her a lot. I understood a lot of her motivations and why she was doing the things, and just like the way she was treated by her family and things. I related a lot. I thought it was great. So yeah, going back to a previously DNF'd book can be successful, but I think the key here is there has to be a lot of time. You can't DNF something not being enjoying it and then go back to it maybe like a couple of months or a year or two later, because you're still going to have very similar feelings. I think especially for a hard DNF, you need to have a significant length of time, enough that you can remember pretty much nothing about it other than you DNF'd it, if you can't really even remember why you DNF'd it. And also, if we take Persuasion for an example, Amy of her early 30s at the time when I was reading this, when I read it, and then the Amy of her late teens, very, very different people. Very different people. And we're going to take something very different away from the book. So, yeah, it works in that respect, because it was almost like a brand new person reading a brand new book for the first time. If I tried to reattempt it when I was in my early 20s instead of my early 30s, I probably would have just DNF'd it again, and then that would have been the end. So I do think a very significant length of time, in this case I think it was like 15 or 16 years, needs to pass by. Because if you're basically the same person with the same experiences, it's just not going to work. Soft DNF, go back to it whenever the mood strikes you. No time limit on that one, even if it's a week or a year or whatever. You soft DNF'd it because you knew this book was going to work for you with the right frame mind. So yeah, no advice on that one. Just pick it up whenever the mood strikes, when the mood feels right. But for if it's a hard DNF, my personal recommendation is leave it alone for a very long time. But anyway, moving on. Second to last prompt. What do you do with the books you've DNF'd? If it's a soft DNF, it goes onto my red shelves. These shelves. There's actually, you can only see the one, but there's actually 3 of them. These are the books that downstairs. These are the books that I have read. For the most part, there are a couple of unread books on here, but for the most part, they're the books that I have either read or attempted to read. Because even if I soft DNF them, I've still read part of them, so they get to go on here. And they come off my TBR shelves. If it's a hard DNF, it doesn't happen as much with my own TBR, but it does still happen. And if that's the case, then I generally, if I think it's a book that a friend would enjoy, I'll ask them if they want it. I'll give them that option of adopting my book. And if either I don't think I would recommend it to a friend or no one wants it, I'll give it to either a local charity shop or to my local library. So that someone else can enjoy it either at a more reasonable rate, or my preferred option is to give it to my local library, because always want to be supporting our libraries. But also it means that, especially if I think it's a really terrible book and does not deserve to be published, or shouldn't have been published, or needed a lot more editing, which has happened fairly recently, I would rather give it to the library so that you know, someone else has the opportunity to try this book without having to spend money on it. I will not tell you which book it was, because a lot of people do apparently seem to be liking this book. I hated it within pages. I was just like, I don't understand how this got published. But we don't have such extreme negative reactions like that on this channel, because that's... I mean, they're absolutely valid reactions, but I like this channel to be a positive place. So yeah, I have those reactions, but I just don't want to tell you what book it was. Because I would be unobjectively mean about it at this point. So I gave it to the library. Cool. And then the last one. Do you choose more or less risky titles because of your DNF stance? My DNF stance does not impact my... It doesn't impact... How do I put this? The books I choose to read, my DNF stance does not impact. What it does have a bit of an impact on is whether I choose to buy it or borrow it. Generally speaking, I will only buy a book that is going to be added to my physical TBR if I think there's a really good chance I'm going to like it. If I think I'm kind of on the shelf, I don't know, I kind of want to try this, but I'm not really sure, it's either going to really work or really won't work. If I can borrow it from the library or through BottleBox or something like that, I'd rather go that route and then buy it afterwards if I did love it. Just because I don't want to spend money on something I don't want to spend money on something that I don't think I'm going to love. And I buy enough books as it is. So, yeah, it doesn't affect the titles I pick, but it does affect how I acquire them. Yeah, I think that pretty much solves it. That was all the questions there were. I actually quite enjoyed this. Looking at what I'd written, which I think I wrote up the answers to these at some point this year, but I think quite early on this year, and I'm quite pleased to see that none of my answers really changed. So I'm at least consistent in how I approach DNFing. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was nice to film a sit-down video again. I have been filming a number of vlogs and I have abandoned a number of vlogs. Like I say, October kicked my butt. I've got a day-long vlog that is not reading related that I am very, very slowly chipping away at, but it was so much fun to film, but it is not fun to edit. But I'm going to be so proud of it once it's done, but we'll get there. So I don't know when that will come out, so I'm not even going to tell you what it is. Just know it's Lilo and Stitch related. But yeah. Let me know. What are your opinions on DNFing? What are your DNFing habits? And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!